Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we have my 2020 Gladiator on the lift. Need to service the rear diff and service the transfer case. So we've got our fluids for that over here. You know, you can do a 75-90 in the rear, just like you would do in the front axle, but I prefer in the rear, since I do some towing with this, to do the 75-140. Transfer case just takes ATF plus 4. The front axle needs to be serviced as well, but I'm not doing that today because I'm going to be ripping this whole axle apart. I'm going to do that in another video. I've got to rebuild my RCV axle shafts. I've got ball joint deletes to put in. So I'm going to try and do that all in one shot. So today we're going to go ahead and do the rear axle. I believe the service interval recommended by Jeep on this is approximately every 30,000 miles. I'm a little overdue. Not by much. I think I have about 47,000 miles on the vehicle, but the Jeep did have a re-gear at about 10 or 11,000 miles. And then it's had an oil change approximately 2,000 to 3,000 miles after that, so we're not too far off. So first thing we got to do is disconnect the sway bar from the axle, get the sway bar out of the way. Then we're going to pull this cover. There is a drain plug on the side of the housing here where we could drain the fluid there, but it's a reusable gasket under the cover. I want to pull the cover because I want to see how the gears look and see how everything looks inside. So we're going to go ahead and get the sway bar out of the way, and then we'll get the cover off. Alright, got the sway bar swung up out of the way. The bolts for the sway bar are 15 millimeter. Now we're going to take the diff cover bolts off. These ones happen to be 10 millimeter. Already checked both of these plugs, make sure that they're loose. Always want to make sure that before you empty something out, make sure your fill plugs do open. Last thing you want to do is drain something and then not be able to get it filled again. Alright, so I'm going to loosen these bolts, then let this drain out, and then we'll open it up and come back and see how the inside looks. Gotta love the smell of gear oil. I'm going to put the phone down so I can get this cover off the rest of the way. I'm going to need 2 hands to do that. Okay, so we got the cover off. Everything looks good inside. Gears look good. If anybody ever wonders, you get a lot of clicking from that locker solenoid if you got a Rubicon. That rattles around in there. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and clean that up, clean the gasket up. Here's the reusable factory gasket. Very similar, kind of, I guess, a Mopar's own version of a lube locker. I'll clean up the inside of the cover and wipe the surface down, make sure it's all clean, and go ahead and get it back together so we can go ahead and fill it back up. Alright, got everything cleaned up. Got the surface all wiped down. Diff cover and gasket are all wiped down. So I'm going to go ahead and get that bolted up. I am going to put just a little dab of anti-seize in each of those holes for the cover, just to make sure, being I'm located in the Northeast, rust gets into everything. So just want to make sure that those don't ever seize up on me. Okay, all sealed back up, cover's on, bolts are all torqued. I torque mine to between about 20, 22, 23 foot-pounds, which should be plenty to hold those on. You don't need to kill them. And she's in there. when I put this in, before I tightened it up, I made sure I'd raise this up just a little bit, so if I'm ever dragging across a rock, I'm on this lip and not on the cover. But obviously if you're going to do damage in that manner, there's not much you can do there. But I'm just going to go ahead and spray it off, and I'm going to tighten up this bottom drain plug, open up the top one, and get ready to start filling it. All right, axle's all full. The manual says it's like almost 1.6 quarts to fill up the M220 rear axle. 1 quart filled it up to just the bottom of this plug. So that's why I opened up this one, put in the other almost 3/4 of a quart. I'm gonna close it up. It's not dripping out of this hole, but we're right at what the capacity reads for this. This is not supposed to be a high volume cover or increased volume cover. I will say, anybody, if you're buying these covers, the Dana Spicer aftermarket covers for the Vantec 44, as you can see, this one's about 3 years old and a little over 40,000 miles up in the Northeast, and yeah, not holding up too well. Next time I'll go with ARBs again. I have ARB covers on, I had that on my JK at one time, and those ones held up for years in the Northeast without any issue. These ones are not doing well, but still heavier than the stock. So I'm going to tighten this up. We should be all good. Everything's sealed, no evidence of leaks, and that should wrap up the rear diff. Then we'll move on to the transfer case. Once you're wrapped up, don't forget to put your sway bar back on and bolt that back into place. Now, for anybody who's running an aftermarket cover like this, your sway bar on full droop, at least with my suspension kit, will actually contact the diff cover. So I actually had to jack up one side of the axle to be able to get these into place. But it's back in place now. So, onto the transfer case. We've got 5 bolts holding the skid plate on. There's 4 18mm bolts here. And then there's one 13mm right here. So we're gonna pop those out so we can drop this out, because here's our drain plug, and then our fill plug is right here. Okay, with the skid plate out of the way, you want to loosen these up. These are 10mm hex head, like Allen key socket. We're going to loosen both these up. We're going to start with the fill plug, because if by some means this does not come out, again, you do not want to drain it unless you can get the fill plug open. And you can go ahead and just let that fluid drain right out. Now the transfer case takes ATF plus 4 fluid. So we got 2 quarts of that. Basically you're going to fill it through the fill plug until it starts to dribble out that fill plug hole, and then that's going to be your stop point. Okay, I got the drain plug back in. Already pumped 1 quart in. Now I'm going to pump the second one in, and you'll see we'll pump it in till it starts to dribble out, and then that's full. And it took pretty much exactly 2 quarts of fluid, and then I had a solid stream for just a moment, and now it's dripping. And that is full. So now we'll put our fill plug back in. We'll snug that up, clean everything up, put the skid plate back on, and that'll complete the service of the transfer case. All right, skid plate is all bolted back up. Well, that completes our service of our rear diff and our transfer case. Hope this helps anybody else that's doing this same project. If you have any comments or suggestions, please feel free to leave them below. If you like what we're doing, like and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.